Hi, I'm Dave. So many people tell me in the comments and face to face is that full self-driving is 25 years away, no chance whatsoever before then, and even now it's deadly. There was a crash the other day, killed someone. You can't have that happening with full self-driving. It's not going to happen in my lifetime. Dave takes it on, has a look into it and finds out that actually it's already happened in your lifetime and it's about to take over big time. So let's have a look at what's going on. Well, full self-drive has been talked about ever since EVs came out. See, prior to EVs, full self-driving was not an easy thing to do. Full self-driving requires a computer to control the various elements of a car, the functions of a car, the accelerator, the brake, the clutch, the gear lever, the steering. All of this needs to be controlled in a full self-driving car. And when they were mechanical, they just simply couldn't do it. I remember I had I think it was a Triumph 2000, and it was one of the first. It had cruise control, so on a motorway you could actually set the speed. It was not adaptive, so you set 70. It did 70, and if the car in front was doing 60, it would just happily smash into the back of it. But it worked as such. But of course, if ever it was forced to slow down, I had to slow down. You had to change gear to be able to get back up to speed again. And then of course automatics got very much better and that problem was overcome, but you still had a mechanical steering wheel linked to the steering arm, and so you had to put an electric motor on that to take over your input. And of course that adds cost to the car, which they wouldn't do, so that didn't happen. Same with the brakes. You had a mechanical brake pedal which pushed a piston, which increased the hydraulic fluid pressure, and that activated the brake pistons, which pressed the pads on the discs. And again, you would have to bring in an electric version of that to be able to get a computer to control it properly and accurately. So when we had the ICE cars, these were not really suitable for full self-driving. They've got a lot better now, simply because an awful lot of the processes have actually changed over to make them suitable. For example, steering. An awful lot of people have power steering, so it used to be hydraulic. Now some of them are electric motors and they can actually do an awful lot more. But they were still not ideally suited. And it wasn't until the full EV, and we're talking about really the early Teslas, where they were designed around the software, that the idea of full self-driving actually became a reality. Not straight away, but actually could be possible one day. And so Tesla announced 2014, I think it was, 2013, that all cars in the future would be driving. By 2017, there'd be full self-drive. Everything's fine. Don't need a driver. Don't even need a steering wheel anymore. Well, that didn't quite happen. It was a little bit more complex than we thought. However, 25 years. This is like the nuclear fusion, isn't it? Everyone said, oh, it's always 20 years away, always 20 years. 20 years later, it's still 20 years away. There are some people out there stuck in this, oh yeah, full self-drive, never happened, at least 20 years away. Some of the comments, it's going to be 2035. Well, there's an awful lot of people disagree with you. Now, the first of those is YouTube. If you go on YouTube today, we're obviously on it now, but if you go on YouTube today and type in Tesla full self-drive, you will find hundreds and hundreds of actual videos of people letting the car drive itself. In America, they are doing it already, and they are now having what they call zero intervention drives. This is where you get in your car, you tell it, go to work, and it'll go to work, and you don't have to do anything. Legally, you have to sit there and watch it. Legally, you have to be ready to take over because that's the law. But in actual fact, you no longer need to take over. If the car gets into trouble, you might need to take over. The car just isn't getting into trouble anymore. So what's happened is the technology has been improving. It's proved to be a huge amount more difficult than Elon Musk ever thought. He thought you could program it up and you put enough lines of coding into it and you can get a self-drive car. You can't. You'll always come across things that haven't been programmed in. And that's been the problem with full self-driving, is that it has so many what-ifs. And of course, these have to be programmed in. I say have to be. They used to be programmed in. They're not any longer. See, what has changed is the way that the full self-drive now learns. So in the past, you would have software coders, and they would write programs, and they would write, if you are approaching a set of traffic lights and they're on red, you will slow down and stop, and you will stop by this white line. And you will stop it within the lane, and you will wait for that light to turn orange, and when it turns orange you will get ready to go, and when it turns green you will set off. And you program in literally every single movement that's possible, and then you have to put in all your contingencies. You know, if there's a car parked on the inside and it's parked and there's no one in it, you need to say, right, well, if you come across that, have a look. If there's no one in the driving seat, then you need to treat it as a stationary object and you need to maneuver around it. And what would happen, of course, is every time you put a car out on the road with this perfect full self-drive program, it would come across situations which nobody had thought of. You know, a boat trailer being towed would become disconnected and stop in the middle of the road. You've never told it what to do in those situations. So what happened over a period of time is that every time they thought they had it cracked, it wasn't. They found that they needed more and more and more code, and more code. Computers got more powerful, the programs got bigger, and at some point they realised that this isn't the way that we drive. We don't learn to drive like that. We learn to drive in a very different way. We learned to drive at a very early age, probably 5, 6, 7 years old. We learned to drive back then. And before people say, yeah, you can't drive a car at that point, of course you can't. But we learned to drive, and we did it by just watching our parents or guardians or whoever looks after us. And every time you get in a car, you'd see your father turn the key, your mother turn the key, you'd see the steering wheel, the gears, everything else. You'd see that you're always on the same side of the road, apart from when you're overtaking. You'd see signs with a number in it, and then whenever you pass that number, your father would slow down or speed up. And you spent a lot of your life learning all of this, and it went in here, and it was stored in here. You learnt everything you needed to know. Now, one day you reach the age of 18, 19, 17, whatever it is in your particular country, and you're given a provisional license and you get behind the wheel of a car and you know it all. You've seen it for years and you're rubbish, absolute garbage. You stall it, you hit the curb, you do all sorts of things. And that's because while we know how to do it, we don't yet have the motor skills to be able to turn what we know into movement. And so we have a transition. And for most of us, it's quite a quick transition. Most of us, well, some people I know, they have a course of 6 or 8 driving lessons, an hour each, take the test and pass. So you learn how to drive in 6 or 8 hours of practical use. You've had years and years of memorising what you need to do, but now it's just transitioning from theoretical into practical. And that's the stage that the full self-drive went through a few years ago. Tesla realised that they weren't ever going to get it right. There would always be things that the car would never be able to do. And so what they did, it coincided with the advent of AI, artificial intelligence. And so what they did was they just built a massive big artificial intelligence machine, and then they sat the computer. This is a glorified image of it. But you sit a computer down and you play videos of all the cars. Now, don't forget, Tesla's got 6 million cars on the road now. Every single car's got cameras on it. Every single car records every single thing it ever does, and it sends that back to Tesla and they store the data. Massive amount of data. You've got 5 million cars, each one doing 10,000 miles a year. That's 10 billion miles a year, and they've been doing this for coming up to 15 years now. So they sit them in front and they just show them an absolute mass. And this is the equivalent of you as a child sat in the back seat of the car watching your father or your mother drive. And they've been going through this, and they go through them at fantastic pace. They don't have to run them in real time. They just play video after video after video. And what the AI is now able to do is to actually learn. And you don't need to tell it anymore what to do. You don't need to program it what to do. If it watches 1,000,000 videos of a car pulling up, seeing a set of lights, changes red, and the car stopping, the AI at some point goes, well, if it does it every single time for 1,000,000 times, this now is how you handle red traffic lights. Same with overtaking, same with T-junctions, same with roundabouts, same with everything. And so these computers, or a computer, has been sat just watching videos in Tesla for a couple of years now, and it's just learning to do everything. And like you and I, just watching our parents, they're finding that when you put it in charge of the car, it can't drive. It's really interesting to note that the Cybertruck has come out and you can't yet get full self-driving on the Cybertruck. The reason for that is you can get it on Model S, you can get it on Model X or a Y or a 3, but not on the Cybertruck. And the reason is that the Cybertruck has steer-by-wire. The wheels aren't connected to a steering wheel physically, and you have four-wheel steering. And when they give that to a full self-drive, it crashes. It's as simple as that. It's never had one before. So what they're doing now they've got the Cybertruck on the road, they're showing the computer footage of the Cybertruck, and sooner or later they'll let that loose, and sooner or later that will learn and it will be able to drive, and full self-drive will be available on the Cybertruck. But it's this learning process. And of course, what's happening now is that it is seeing things that we either don't know or just take for granted. For example, what it's done is take a dead end. You're driving down a road. It's a proper road, and there should be a route through. It's a route you've taken many times, but somewhere down that road it goes really narrow, and there's a crash. The road is blocked. Big signs up saying road blocked. What's happening now, and there's no programming at all, what the car is now doing, the AI, is saying, well, I can't go forward, I need to go backwards, I don't have enough width to be able to turn round, so I'm going to reverse. And the cars now are just on their own, just reversing all the way back up until they get to a junction. Then they replan the route. Your sat-nav already does this. If ever you miss a turning, sat-nav just adapts your route. So they're now planning a route. But they're doing one other thing, and that is they're sending a message to other cars, don't go down this road, it's blocked. And this is absolutely quite fascinating to me anyhow. So what's happened now is the AI is taking over, and the AI is phenomenally fast at learning. It can learn in a week what others take years to learn. And of course, what Tesla's got is all the data. They've got billions and billions of miles. I noticed Google the other day, I think it was, saying, oh, we are going to develop full self-driving, and we've just covered 1,000,000 miles of training. And I'm thinking, yeah, but Tesla are doing 1 billion a week. Yeah, it's a different world altogether. You can't do AI, train AI on 1,000,000 miles. It just won't happen. So we're heading rapidly to the point now where these are ready to go. And we know this because the UK government has just passed a law which says by 2026, 18 months from now, we will have full self-driving cars on the road. And they've produced a white paper, they've passed it into law, they've got a load of documentation behind it, and the government is all for it because there are so many advantages to full self-driving. Number one is, and these are government figures, they have stated that 80% of accidents are caused by human error. By a driver lapse, someone who doesn't see something, the blind spot in the mirror, or if he was distracted, he or she was distracted, or, oh, I thought I could get through on an overtake, but I didn't have enough, or whatever it was. And of course, 80% of accidents caused by human drivers, that's most of them. So if you can get full self-driving working, you do away with 80% of the accidents on our road today. That's a phenomenal figure. Thousands of people die on the road and hundreds of thousands of people are injured, insurance claims and everything else. Imagine for a minute that you have full self-driving. They don't crash into each other. They don't kill people. But of course, they will. And the reason is there will be some accidents that are absolutely unavoidable. If you're driving along on a nice road, dual carriageway at 60 or 70 miles an hour, quite legally, and someone, a drunk driver, comes out of the side and just pulls straight out in front of you, there's absolutely nothing anyone can do. Even Lewis Hamilton, he would smash into it, as we regularly see on Formula One. So there'll always be accidents. And we unfortunately saw one recently in America with one of the cruise cars, fully self-driving, no driver in it at all. So for those of you who say it doesn't work, they're already on the streets. They're out there already. In America, you can actually hire a full self-driving car without a driver. But that one, unfortunately, it wasn't the car's fault. It was driving quite happily, legally, sanely and sensibly. And someone swerved. It turns out, we think it was a drunk driver, swerved across and hit a pedestrian. And that pedestrian was thrown into the path immediately in front of the car. It had no chance of stopping, and no car could, even Lewis Hamilton couldn't. Unfortunately, the car ran over it. It did apply the brakes instantly and it stopped. It wasn't going terribly fast. Unfortunately, then this programming thing kicked in, and the car, it wasn't on AI, it was programmed. And what the car was programmed to do was, in the event of an accident, to pull to a safe location at the side of the road. And nobody had ever programmed it to say, you've got a body underneath and you shouldn't move at all. Only move to a safe place if you don't program that sort of thing in. So obviously it moved at that point and made the situation a lot worse. Well, I'm not sure it was worse. I think it was already too late for the victim, but that's what we're saying. I know everyone says, oh, you know, AI, full self-drivers killed a passenger. No, the killing was done by the drunk driver who hit him and threw him into the path of the full self-driving car. But what they don't tell you is that in America, in Los Angeles, for example, they have 140 crashes with injuries every day. 140. So the idea that this one car crashed and it's the end of the world for full self-driving, 140 accidents a day, 140 every day. And they are caused 100% by human drivers, because there's virtually no full self-driving cars on the road at all. So we put up with 140 accidents a day, which injures people and kills people and damages cars, causing insurance claims and inconvenience. But if one full self-driving car has an incident, that's the end of the world. So it was a death. So let's have a look. How many deaths are there on the roads every day in Los Angeles? And the answer is not quite one. About every 30 hours, there's a fatality caused by a road traffic accident. 30 hours. Near enough one a day. So every single day of the year, that must be about 300 deaths a year in Los Angeles, and one FSD causes an incident which results in a death, and all of a sudden it needs to be banned. No. We need to get a little bit of the hype out of the way. We need to stop listening to the media, and we need to realise that in every city in the world there are countless dozens or hundreds of accidents every single day. There are countless deaths, maybe not every day, but certainly many in a week and many over a year. And if the full self-driving is of sufficient stage where it's not going to start killing people and not going to have interventions required, then we can get rid of 80% of those accidents. Now, I don't know if people realise this, but we have a huge problem with insurance costs in the UK. I'm sure it's the same in other countries, but our costs have been going up because cars are crashing more often and they're getting more expensive to pay. Can you imagine if you got full self-driving and your car just doesn't crash, how much your insurance premium would be? Interesting question. So there are bonuses to this. Full self-driving, if we look at it purely from a health and safety point of view, has got to happen. And that's what the UK government has now recognised. It will produce safer roads. It will reduce the loading on the NHS. It will reduce the insurance claims and the inconvenience and closing roads and the police response. It is a massive, massive change for the good. It's also a big employer. The government has stated tens of thousands of jobs are lined up in this industry for the future. So what the law's done? Laws are very simply, all it's done is it's said that it sets the ground rules for full self-driving cars. One of the issues was if you are in the back seat asleep and the car crashes, who's to blame? Well, up until now, the law says that if you're in the car, you're what's called the occupant in control, OIC, or the driver in control, and you're responsible. And even if you're fast asleep in the back and it's classed as full self-driving, you're still responsible. What this law has done is just simply said, no, if you're not in control of the car, but the car is controlling itself, then the manufacturer of that car or the software that drives it must take 100% responsibility. So what that means is that, in effect, if your car is capable of self-driving and you use it in self-driving mode, effectively, you don't need insurance anymore. Now, awful lot of people out there will be very happy with that. I don't have to pay insurance. So there's a lot of positives can come out of full self-driving. But of course, the media, it's all the glory headlines. Yeah, one full self-driving car kills someone. It didn't. You know, these are going to be on our road. They're going to be crashing all over the place. We're not ready for them and everything. Yeah, let's get a bit of reality. There's a lot of good will come out of full self-driving, particularly if it can eliminate those 80% of accidents which are currently caused by us. But it will also get rid of an awful lot of traffic. And this is what the government's trying to get to, is if all full self-driving cars are autonomous and making up their own decisions, they will always look for the shortest or the quickest route. And if they know there's an accident ahead, then they can avoid it before they get there, but they can also tell other cars, so it rattles through the system very quickly. Let me know in the comments below why you tell me you still want to drive and you enjoy driving. Because for me and most of the people I come across who've gone EV, we no longer like driving. We no longer enjoy doing all the things we used to like when we were driving. And instead, we now settle back and relax. Cars are much more automated with adaptive cruise control, lane keeping, everything else. And they're nice and quiet, nice and comfortable. And to me, if the car could just take over and do the actual final bit of the driving, that's for me. Anyway, thanks very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this, click the like button. If you want to see more, please subscribe. I'm Dave.